Ahoy hoy, and welcome to my Halloween special where we're going to be comparing the spooky levels from two iconic N64 games. So today we're going to be comparing Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, specifically a Big Boo's Haunt versus Mad Monster Mansion. And here's my category list that we're going to go through, and we're going to start off with first impressions. So let's start off with Mario 64. And here we are in the wonderful world of Mario 64. I'm actually playing the 3D All-Stars version, just as disclosure. So first impressions, what I was thinking of was basically the area around the level entrance. Like here we approach this corridor, which until a certain point in the game is nice and safe, the back garden's nice, but now there's this spooky Boo here, and he's just, causing no good, and you really, it's a sort of spooky, makes a safe area, previously safe area, quite spooky. And now we're out here in the back garden, and it's full of all these awful smelly boos, which, is not so nice, as this was an area which, when I used to play this game as a kid, I used to like, practicing my moves, jumping around, trying to do the little backflip jump, which I'm trying to do now. There we go, and a little wall kick. And yeah, so that's sort of, this area here has got all these dreadful boos, and then there's this big boo here that has the little house inside, so you just got to kill that ghost, although you can't kill ghosts, as we'll learn later. And this is the level here inside this tiny little cage, which we're going to jump into, which I think is quite cool as a sort of first impression, fairly spooky as Mario shrinks down there. But now we're going to have to check out Banjo-Kazooie Mad Monster Mansion. Now we're in the wonderful world of Banjo-Kazooie within Gruntilda's lair, which is quite spooky in its own right. All the little doors have these awful little eyes and teeth. We're going to leave this lava cave and go into the area where the Mad Monster Mansion level entrance is, and straight away we've got this spooky graveyard, lots of rest in peace signs, and some of these will actually come to life after I've actually been in the level, which I haven't yet on this playthrough. And yeah, it's definitely a lot more sort of spooky ambience than the back garden in Peach's Castle, should I say. And looking around, we've got the spooky sky there, which is all very nice, the little house. The moon looks great, I think. It's very much sets the mood quite nicely. And yeah, there's the entrance back towards Gruntilda's lair. But let's head into the level, and I like to think that both these levels are set in Pennsylvania. And we're going to quickly look at the the first impressions of the actual level themselves. So we're back in Mario 64 now, and this is Big Boo's Haunt. So straight in front of us, straight away, we've got the sort of Boo Mansion and just that ambient sound going down, which is just, pretty dang terrifying, actually, especially for compared to most of the levels in Mario 64. We see a big Boo at the top there. So yeah, in terms of a first impression of the actual level itself, I say this is pretty strong, actually, and stronger than I was expecting. Yeah, it's super nice, super spooky. Let's go check out Banjo-Kazooie, though, now. We're into Mad Monster Mansion now. And here we are, and we can just hear that sort of chilling music and sound effects coming in. Sounds great. And here's the maybe less impressive house, but yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But I think a combination of this pretty cool level opening and the sort of entrance area up to it kind of trumps Mario 64's. I think the garden could be better. So first impressions, I'm going to give it to Mad Monster Mansion, just for that sort of entrance area and entry into the level. So first point goes to Banjo-Kazooie. Next up, spooky ambience of the level itself. And we're back in Mario 64 here, which I think just the noise and the sounds going on here within the sort of outskirts of the Boo Haunt. And then when we get inside the mansion itself, the music building up, just this empty room is quite sort of terrifying in its own right. The sort of greys and lack of any real colour in here is just so spooky. And then you go into these sort of wooden clad rooms, everything sort of seems quite abandoned. That was the piano room back there, which we'll come to in a moment. And yeah, the spooky library where the furniture attacks you even, it's all quite terrifying. But also, if that doesn't quite wet your whistle, you got this sort of back room here in, the outhouse, which has a giant eyeball that looks at you, which is pretty awful. But when you go down the lift, you're into this sort of horrible water sewery area, and then you go down this little corridor here, and then you can start hearing the sort of sound effects and things changing. You hear some sort of weird machine going on and what sounds like carnival music just in the background. Yeah, we'll cover the music again in a minute, but yeah, I just think the ambience here, and then you go into this, so it's also sort of got that creepy sort of carnival vibe as well as the sort of spooky ambience that we got from the rest of the level, and that's basically Mario 64. So let's go back to Mad Monster Mansion now. We are back in this sort of entrance area to Mad Monster Mansion, and yeah, it's definitely a nice area, but that's the problem. It's a nice area. It's still got that sort of whimsical Banjo-Kazooie charm. I know it's got spooky vibes and everything, but yeah, it still looks like a relatively normal sort of abandoned house as opposed to the weird Boo Mansion. And inside, yes, there's a spooky ghost in there, but he's snoring away, and you got Gruntilda still saying rhymes at you. So, you know, there isn't that much of a spooky ambience going on in here, and I'm really not so sure compared to Mario 64. In terms of around the sort of rest of the level, we can climb up the mansion, which is quite nice on the outside, and we've got all these vines and stuff with the different rooms and windows that you can break into, which, you know, so it looks quite cool. There's the room over there with light shining out of it, which sort of sends a cool vibe. There's a well there. Obviously lots of spooky movies have wells involved in them as well, so that's quite nice as well. And looking out on the other side, we do have a church and graveyard, which, you know, pretty cool, and a hedge mage like the Shinning over there.
You mean shining?
Shh! You wanna get sued?
And we can break into this window and check out a bit more of the inside of the mansion as well, which has some really cool light effects, which, you know, for the N64 this was pretty good, I think, the light effects in here. And Mario 64 being an earlier game couldn't quite take advantage of that. Inside this lighthouse as well, we've then got the equivalent of the creepy carnival room as well, with the Ouija board room, which sort of has its own sort of creepy ambience to it as well, but in a different way. And then finally we can send our love down the well.
And we're sending our love down the well. All the way down!
And look down there, and yes, it's a well. It's got all these spooky vines at the bottom. Pretty cool sort of ambience there as well. And then finally we can sort of look out and jump into the church grounds, which is pretty cool how the music changes as soon as we go inside. And yeah, it's a graveyard. Pretty spooky ambience here, but again, it's all a bit sort of more cartoony and whimsical, which I know is the theme with Banjo-Kazooie, but yeah, overall I think that this isn't quite as spooky. We've got some cool like effects with the stained glass there, but yeah, overall I think definitely Big Boo's Haunt, Mario 64 is the much more spooky ambience of the games. So next we're going to compare the actual haunted houses. Here I'm interested in comparing the interiors of each sort of titular haunted house of each level. So we had that main room there that we've already seen before, and the upstairs of it there, we saw the haunted library there for a second, which we looked at previously. But there's lots of different rooms with quite a lot of variety in here, with different things going on. And yeah, there is some cool light effects there, not as good as Banjo, but yeah, we even got the sort of big haunted library with books flying at you. And then even a room here which you can just nope straight out of because there's a big freaking eyeball there. So yeah, the interior of the Mario 64 mansion is obviously, I think it's pretty good. Obviously there's the piano room we'll get back to, it's too scary. Now let's look at the mansion of Mad Monster Mansion, the sort of interior here that we saw briefly. We have this sort of big dining room area, which is quite cool with the scale of all the giant furniture and stuff. I mean, there's the ghost on the table, but yeah, I like this room. It's got the creaky floorboards that opens up the stupid ghost, Nappa, you know, the sleeping ghost. You got all the portraits hanging around as well. You know, it's a nice room. For a sort of a nice house, or mansion I guess as it's called, and we can go in through some of the windows to some of the different rooms. So this is sort of like a storage room or something that's only accessible via a window. It's got all some stupid bad guys in there as well, and we can go through a different window. And this is the sort of light room. I don't know, this is supposed to be sort of in the rafters, I guess. There's not much going up there. There's the bathroom, which is great because you've got a talking toilet who talks in fart and poop noises. Not the most spooky thing, but it's quite cool that you can turn into a pumpkin and flush yourself down there. We've also got the sort of shower from Psycho, I'm guessing, with the shower curtain there. That's a nice spooky reference. And then within this main window here, you've got, I'm assuming it's Grunty's sort of main bedroom, and you can jump on top of her bed with the spring pad, which is pretty cool. There's a Jinjo up there as well. It's a nice room with a stupid ghost in it. And then we can go down the chimney which leads back into that sort of main dining room, but you can get on top of the table this time. But I think just the more linear structure and everything of the Mario 64 house compared to the Banjo-Kazooie one, I think that one wins this category. So the Haunted House from Big Boo's Haunt wins this category. Next up, we've got the music to compare. So let's go back to Mario 64. So I put the game audio up a bit so we can hear a bit better. Now, obviously, when you're first in Big Boo's Haunt, you just sort of have the wind, and then the music, you could just about hear it coming in this outside area, and then it builds up when you get inside the house. You get that sort of, I don't know, xylophone-y? Not xylophone, but I don't know what instrument that is. But it builds up as you get in the house, but it doesn't really crescendo much from there. It's sort of just that sort of spooky background music, as I would say. And then the only other real music going on in the level is when you go into the underground and you've got the sort of faint carnival music and the weird machine noise. But then when you enter the room, you actually get the full-on carnival music experience, which, yes, is creepy, but in terms of music, I'd say it's kind of annoying. And that's about it for Mario, so let's head into Banjo. And obviously you've got the sort of animal noises, the organ coming in for the Mad Monster Munchkin theme, and then the sort of that little frog for some reason, and then that sort of spooky, eerie noise, and then you get into the music. And yeah, I mean, it's Banjo-Kazooie. All the music's fantastic, but yeah, Mad Monster Mansion is a very strong track, I would say. And obviously there's different variants of it depending where you are in the level, but just listen. It's such a good song, such a good track, should I say, and it just goes along nicely with the gameplay, I think. Inside the side rooms of the mansion, you get this sort of different music going on and a sort of creepy laugh going on, but it's, you know, it's a much more slower pace. It's a bit more quiet because you're inside as opposed to outside, which works quite nicely. You have the creepy Ouija board music, which, you know, isn't the best in terms of music, but I guess sets the scene quite nicely for this room. And then you have the underwater theme down the well, and this is nice, sort of more tranquil version of the theme, except for the stupid vines, of course. But yeah, even the underwater music sounds good, which, you know, is quite rare. And then finally, you go from the big, loud, bombastic music, and then you jump into the church and graveyard. And it just goes quieter, and it's just that sort of more eerie music. So overall, I'm going to say easily, I mean, Banjo-Kazooie easily wins. I don't think that was ever going to be a fair contest. Next up, scariness. And talking of not a fair contest, we're here. It's the piano room. I think Mario 64 just is clearly the scary game because of this thing. God, this piano used to terrify me so much as a kid. I don't know why. There's something about the clanging of it, the fact it's unkillable, and it's just absolutely terrifying. I absolutely hate this thing, and yeah, and now as an adult I can try and fight it, but you can't fight the piano. The haunted piano with its teeth and jaws just will always win. So yeah, scariness, Banjo-Kazooie can't compete. Mario 64 Big Boo's Haunt wins that. Next up, Halloweenness. And I think straight away, Mario 64 Big Boo's Haunt isn't really a Halloweeny level per se. And neither really is Mad Monster Mansion, except for this transformation that you get in the level, which literally turns you into a living pumpkin that bounces around and makes cute noises. And yeah, you can't get much more Halloweeny than being like a living pumpkin jack-o'-lantern. So I'm just going to say over that Banjo-Kazooie has easily won this. It's not much of a contest, just like the scariness before it. So Banjo-Kazooie wins Halloweenness. And now for the final category, the bad guys, both how good they are and how spooky they are. In Mario 64, we have these weird spider things, which, you know, aren't great enemies. We have the piano we've already covered, probably the most terrifying enemy. We've got these books with teeth, which are pretty scary, and the furniture as well being thrown at you, which is, you know, pretty awful as well. We have the boos themselves, so when you actually do defeat them, say, ghosts don't die, but can you get out of here alive? Pretty damn scary. And then we have these weird eyeballs you have to run around to defeat, which is, you know, pretty damn spooky as well. And then finally we have the sort of big boos, which there's a few of. This is from the Big Boo Hunt, and yeah, they're big scary boys, and when you can't jump on them and use normal attacks, but when you stomp on them, they make the weird thwomp noise when you attack them. And yeah, they're pretty cool enemies, and boos are quite iconic, but I think the piano and all the other enemies and weird things going on this level are pretty strong. Back to Banjo-Kazooie now, and we've got these bats, which, you know, it's a bat, pretty unimpressive. We have the skeleton and the horrible skeleton fish monsters as well. The skeletons are annoying because they don't actually die with normal attacks. You have to use up a gold feather and wonder wing them, which causes jolly music to come in, which sort of takes you out of the mood. The haunted gravestones, I think, are a great enemy. They're tough as well. They take 3 hits. Look at them, like, eyes fall off and everything. I think that's a really good enemy. Here we are back in the Shinning Maze, and these really annoying, stupid ghosts. I hate the noises they make, the way they follow you around, and again, you have to use Wonder Wing to dispatch them as well. I'm really not a big fan of these enemies at all, and they're not that spooky either, they're just annoying. And it's the same with Nappa here, you just gotta walk inside him and take his jiggy. So, yeah, I think overall, and this is sort of the deciding vote, I guess, between the two of them, I think I'm going to have to lean towards Mario 64. The piano is scary, but also the boos are great enemies as well as some of the others in there, the books and everything. So Mario 64 wins, but let's have a look. Banjo-Kazooie is the loser. I'm afraid it only has 3 points in terms of my Halloween contest, whereas Mario 64, Big Boo's Horn is the winner with 4 points. I hope you enjoyed this Halloween special, and if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe, and until next time, goodbye!